Greetings. Welcome to In Conversation with Trevor, brought to you by Heart and Soul Broadcasting Services. I go beyond the headlines and beyond the sensational. Today I'm in conversation with Pious Nyenyewa, a movie director, a professional animator, and studio lead of Alula Animation Studios. If you enjoy this conversation, remember to subscribe, to like, and to share. Let's get down to some business. Pious Nyenyewa, I am so excited. I think I'm more excited than you are to be having this conversation with you. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me on this amazing show.
Wow, you've just won an award for Kizazi Moto. Are you pinching yourself? What is Kizazi Moto? Tell us about Kizazi Moto.
Well, yeah, it's still trying to shake off the whole out-of-body experience.
Yeah.
But Kizazimoto is essentially an anthology series that was done by Disney. It's a combination of 10 films from across 10 different countries across Africa with 10 different directors. And ours is episode number 6 called Mukuze. So basically it is a coming-of-age themed anthology, which is basically focusing on anything that is aspirational from culture and how we see ourselves. And our specific episode focuses on the Great Zimbabwe. So it is quite an interesting episode. Mukuze is the main character.
And Mukuze is a brainchild, is your brainchild.
Yes.
Talk to us about how you arrived at Mukuze.
So back in the day, Mukuze is the main character in the film. And back in the day, I remember visiting the Great Zimbabwe. And dare I say it on this amazing show, I was a little bit disappointed by how not taken care of it was. And I remember thinking, well, we've heard stories about these sacred places basically taking care of themselves. Like, there are certain things you're not supposed to do. You're not supposed to litter. You're not supposed to use foul language. You would vanish and all that stuff. And I was like, well, why is this happening? Where are the people who've littered? Where are they? Why aren't they being punished by this place? So basically this was the conception of the film, or at least the plot of it. And I was like, hey, wouldn't it be interesting if we explore where people go at that time? And the story just started to tell itself, through experience. You're looking at certain people, and then you're just like, wow, what if we explore a place where maybe it takes you to a place where the Great Zimbabwe is still in its prime and you're supposed to learn? If you don't learn, the ethics of being Zimbabwean, of being Shona, and everything that who we are, those are the people that vanish and never come back. Because the ones that actually do come back, they tend to be
You know what? As you're talking
healers.
like this,
Yeah.
I wish every time anybody in this country littered, they vanished. Boom.
Yeah, they're
anybody
gone.
who litters, they vanish,
Yeah.
they go. And anybody who speaks on the phone whilst driving, they vanish.
Yeah,
Boom.
that's usually the worst.
So that's going to be my movie, hey?
Yeah, so the part that really interested me was those who do come back seem to have some kind of enlightenment, at least in Shona cultures. And I was like, well, they definitely learned something. So that's the premise of the story.
Wow. So imagine in my movie, anybody that litters vanishes. And when they come back, they've been taught not to litter.
Absolutely. I mean, it goes with the eco-friendly theme that we're looking at today, saving the world.
But I wanted to take you back. For you to do Mukuze, you received an email during COVID. Talk to us about that email.
So I think there's nothing much you can say about COVID because I know we all know. It was a very depressing time for a lot of people. Well, for me, I'm an introvert, so it wasn't really difficult. I was already used to living like that. But for the animation industry, it was quite an an interesting time because business was boomed. A lot of people could not film, couldn't take up cameras, couldn't visit locations, so everybody was flocking to animation. So I received an email from Awan Tendanyike. You should look her up. She's amazing. Awan Tendanyike. And it was basically asking us to submit 3 films. Do you have ideas for 3 films? At that time, I wasn't too sure like who it was. I said, look, I only have 1. I remember at that time. Of course, like I had more than 3, but I had one that was quite confident in submitting. I submitted that one. They're like, well, if you submit 1, you just know that there are thousands of people that are submitting films, and they're submitting 333. That's gonna, your odds of getting. And I was like, well, if I don't get it, that's okay. But fortunately, I did get it, and then we were told that this is Disney. And I remember just calling everyone in the studio and just going on an amazing call. I was like, guys, we just gotten into Disney. And it was one of the happiest moments. But then you go through intense development.
Before we go through intense development, I mean, this
Yeah.
is big. Let's not fast forward. Talk to me about what that felt like for you and the team. This is Disney calling.
You have an amazing out-of-body experience, right? Because you don't, the thing that we always talk about, like you think certain opportunities are not for you, right? And the things that you're doing, you feel like they're not making an impact, but people are watching. So in that moment, it's a realization that, people are watching, and this could significantly change my life. And it's like you're thinking about, well, of course, you have the excitement, and then you have the panic attack, like, what if I fail? Because I don't know any Zimbabwean who had been in that position before. So it's like, what if I fail? So you have this care of duty that you now have that's crossing over between excitement and fear. And everyone in the studio, we started to brush up on the skills that we're already brushing up on. But now you're like being called by the gods of animation to join them. And you're thinking, am I going to perform as good as they expect?
Am I worthy?
Exactly. But then you realize they're all people. They're the nicest people in the world. So, yeah, it was quite an amazing moment.
And am I correct that you submit one idea, and there's 65 of you,
Yes.
and then it's reduced to 25 of you?
Yes.
Talk to me about the waiting period before it gets to 16 of you. What was that like?
So I'll tell you what happened. So I pitched, I submitted a synopsis, and the synopsis was accepted. And then you get to meet the execs from Disney, on a Zoom call. I remember trying to set up something like this to have the perfect lighting. And I recorded the meeting without them knowing because I thought this is as far as I go, right? There's Orion, there's Peter Ramsey, there's Shamik, there's Katie, there's all these people that I know of, right? I only heard them on TV. This is as far as I go. So this meeting, this
Is
Zoom,
the end of it.
this is it. This is what I need. But then it went beyond that. So it was quite amazing just hearing that, look, you got into the next point. So at first, like, this is the meeting, this is the satisfaction that I need to know that I'm on the right track. So I'm not really expecting to get to the next round. When I found out that I got to the next round, now my stomach starts turning. Because now I'm like, okay, like, can I make it to the next round? And they have a tendency of going quiet, not because they're quiet, but because they're really going through everything. So, but by the time we got down to the next 25, they're now asking the real questions, right? Which is like, you made it, but are you a writer? Are you this? Now, I wasn't a writer. I wasn't a writer at all. So I reached out to a friend of mine named Taf, who ended up being my co-director, Tafazo.
Right.
Yeah, he ended up being my co-director. And the biggest intense waiting period is to hear if you made it to the last 10.
So you made 16, final 16.
Final 16.
You wait again.
Exactly. So when you get to the last 16, basically get into development. So your story is okay, but let's flesh it out a little bit more before you pitch again. Let's see what the characters look like, draw some of these things, write the story, let's see what the world looks like, explore ideas, and then you do an actual Hollywood pitch. And
how is this the out-of-body experience right now? I mean, this thing is stretching on.
yeah, I think by the time that you get to, because this was over a year, All right. So by the time you get there, you've settled into the feeling that this is happening. Right. You're still trying to be on your best behavior, but you've settled into it basically. So you're not really too scared as much because you're meeting with the producers almost on a weekly basis, almost on a daily basis sometimes. So I had settled into the feeling that
This was becoming normal
this
for
was
you.
becoming normal. Yeah.
Before you got the email, what were you doing?
Advertising, which we're still doing.
Yeah.
So we're doing advertising. So basically, here's
You're doing advertising and you are Alula Animation Studios.
Alula
Is that
Animation. Yes.
Okay, yeah.
I do have a studio called Alula Animation that I've found in 2017.
Okay.
And we wanted to make movies, but of course movies are expensive, right? They require a lot, but we were like, okay, let's just baby steps. Let's do advertising because I had done graphic design. I'd worked in agencies before, so this was a space that I knew. So we got together with a bunch of friends. We started a studio, and we're doing advertising, but our approach was quite different because we didn't do your typical, what we call like a spinning phone advert where phone spins and then they're like, hey, here's an iPhone. But we'll craft a story. So someone would come to us and say, we're trying to sell a certain package. So we'd literally sit down and develop a short film. And I guess when people looked at them, they would play in theaters. So they were like almost like short trailers of films and stuff. And I think this is the reason why it was easy for the Disney producers and the guys from over at Triggerfish down in South Africa when they're looking for storytellers to pick us because we were already doing some form of story, even though it was in the advertising space. And we were quite successful. It won multiple Ngoma awards, which were really big for us at that time.
And what does Alula stand for? How did you come up with Alula? It's a beautiful word. It's a beautiful name. How did you come up with it?
So I love short names. They're very easy to remember. Let me look at Apple. Like you can just remember it like Pixar. So I wanted something that just resembles something like that. But I couldn't really find one. And I remember just going through a whole bunch of names. I remember some point called Silver Spoon because I was like, hey, you're being given a good dose of creativity, like a silver spoon. And I found out the silver spoon
It's
already.
there already.
It's there already. And I was watching a tutorial, an animation tutorial on how to animate dragons by Jim Brown. And so basically what you do is when you're learning how to animate, you study anatomy. So I was watching, okay, of course, there are no dragons, so there might be reference to other animals I already know, like albatross or like eagles and stuff. So they were explaining the trifold system of a wing. And he mentioned this tiny little thing. You know, a chicken wing, right? It's a trifold system that goes this way. There's a little thumb, this little tiny little thing, right? That's
yeah.
That's the Alula.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the Alula. And I was like, I love it. It just spoke to me because the Alula allows bigger birds of prey to basically fly and control wind. It's the technology behind the flaps of the wing of an airplane.
Fascinating.
That's the Alula. And I loved it so much because of what it meant. It's like an evolutionary little element that allows big birds to soar up high. And so... But one of the reasons I loved it is that it spells Alula the same way.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Reverse and...
it still says the same thing.
So you say this. You say that Alula Animation Studio is not just a studio.
Mm-hmm.
You also say Alula Animation Studio is more than a company. What is Alula Animation Studio?
Oh, so we focus on story. But of course, like we're a production company, and we're a bunch of nerds, dare I say it, who are friends who came up with an idea to.
How many are you?
So yeah, we fluctuate depending on the work that's at hand. I think the most people that we've had in studios, 16, 17.
Okay.
No, actually 23 last year.
Okay.
When we did a hologram show.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's more than just a studio, right? I think we're championing ideas that show identity. with an
African identity.
African identity, specifically Zimbabwean
Zimbabwean
identity.
Okay.
Yeah, challenging the norms that nothing good can really come out of Zimbabwe. You know, that's really what we stand for, and we do it while having fun, which is something my dad never understood, that we don't wear suits at work.
So talk to me about those 16 people. What's 16 to 23 people? What skill set do they bring to the table?
Various skill sets. So in animation, a lot of people are doing a lot of things. You can't really. We do have what we call generalists, which are basically people who do everything. But there's one team that does characters only, some that do hair only, some that do clothes, some that do animation, which is the art of actually making the character move, some who do visual effects, that's explosions, smoke, or any tiny little magical thing that you're accustomed to movies, some that do sound, and in rare cases, voices, which I actually voiced the main character. I was the voice of Mukute.
Wow, you've got a beautiful voice.
Oh, thank you very much.
Quite distinct, yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people are handling so many different things. Some are in admin, which are the producers, the more powerful people who really make things happen. But the core 16 people that we usually have on a good project are spread across the whole production, you know, focusing on specific things.
So you are basically self-taught.
Yes.
Okay. We're going to take a break now. When we come back, we're going to go to how you got to teach yourself. I mean, I'm fascinated about that because you've also taught me a new word, which is autodidact. And I had to Google it to find out what it means, which is what you are. And I think to a certain extent, which is what I am. So viewers at home, don't go away. When we come back, we're going to go into how Pious taught himself this beautiful trade that he's in, which has won him an award all the way from Hollywood. So see you on the other side.
You know what I actually say? I think if I was in animation, I'd probably be in engineering. Not that because I'm smart, but I was always interested in how things work.
Welcome back to our conversation with Pious Nyenyewa, an award-winning movie director, dare I say, a professional animator, a studio lead at Alula Animation Studios. So I laughed hard when I got to this piece where you, part of your inspiration is that you used to watch ZBC cartoons.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I used to watch ZBC cartoons, but for a different reason, for entertainment.
Right.
There I was watching for entertainment, but you were being educated. Talk to me about those first steps.
You know, in the formative days, when I guess like I can speak for my generation now when I say that we all were rushing to watch Transformers and all those characters and Spartacus and the sun underneath the sea. I wasn't too sure that that's what was happening because I was a kid, right? I was just glued to the TV. But then it was when I got older, when the itch of watching cartoons is not really going away, right? It turns from an itch to like, oh, how did they do it? And I call myself a draftsman. Like I could already draw. This was something that is like well known in my family that I could draw. So it was like the interest in like, okay, how are they doing it? Which led me to I guess hunt for the information as little as I could find it in the pre-internet days. And
well, that's fascinating. And for me, usually I want to take pit stops there because there's a lesson there. And that lesson is, I am watching with you, and I'm just fascinated at how I'm following these characters and what they're doing. But you're watching, and then you say, but how are they doing it? Where does that come from?
You know what I actually say? I think if I was in animation, I'd probably be in engineering. Not that because I'm smart, but I was always interested in how things work, right? And this is what also my dad said. It's either if I wasn't watching cartoons, I was opening the microwave, trying to figure out,
How it works.
how it works. Yeah. So I think you and my wife would probably be in the same group because she hates it every time. I'm like, you see what's happening right there?
Yeah, yeah.
That's how they're shooting it. She hates it.
No, I just want to. So you're watching cartoons, you get inspired, you want to find out how they do
Yeah.
it, and then what's the next thing?
The next thing is Sunday Youth with my sister. My uncle Givmo Chizizi is doing a session on career guidance. And he's asking everyone what you want to do, what you want to do. And I said, well, I want to do animation. I think I was like 13 at that time. And I didn't actually believe they wanted to do animation because at some point you think it's going to be a wake up call. I'm going to get into, I don't know, accounting or something. No dig to accounting. We love you guys. But as we were going home, my sister was like, are you for real? And I was like, yeah, I think I'm for real. It's like, you can actually do it, right? You can actually do it as a profession. I guess like that's the moment for me where my sister, Rumbi, was like, you can actually do it. I was like, wait, I
Yeah.
can actually do it. And that's when I took it really serious. Until like I just followed that path. I think since then I never really diverted from wanting to be an animator. It was more of like, okay, how do I do it?
And your parents supported you. Talk to me about how did they do that?
That just never stood in my way. No, it's so true because I have friends who their parents told them like, who do you know who does cartoons? Or like drawing, like it's not really like a very serious thing, right? But because my parents just saw me drawing ever since I was a kid, it wasn't something that they wanted to like step in and be like, okay, really think about it because are you gonna make money? It's more like, do you find it interesting? Okay, do it. When I was at Harare Poly, my dad never really understood what he was paying tuition for. And this is a prime example of getting out of my way. Is he didn't understand what I was doing because at some point I'm walking in the house with the baboon's carcass, and then because we're doing like object drawing, he's like, he never like questioned what are you doing? Are you nuts or whatnot? Right? He just left it, but he was paying tuition. He only understood, I think, 2 years into the company that that's what you're doing. And that's over 10 years. So they just never got
And
into it.
mom didn't say you're bringing rubbish into the house.
Not
You
even.
get out.
Not even.
No.
No. The first year we used to, doing insect drawing, we used to capture, what do you call them? Roaches, cockroaches. You put them in salt to preserve their bodies. And you draw them, you put them on a needle, and then you draw as best as you
Accurate
can.
as possible.
Yeah. But my mom never looked at me like, what are you doing? She'd just walk in. And now, as an adult, I'm like, I wonder what's going in their minds. But they
So
never
what
interfered.
what does your mom do? What does your dad do?
My mom was an amazing mom. She was a stay-at-home mom.
Is she late?
No, she's around.
She's around.
She's
okay.
around, yeah.
Okay.
My dad is a former banker. He was at Intermarket, ZB, and now he is a finance director at the studio.
Wow.
So when he retired,
Yeah.
I knew.
You're the finance director.
Yeah, I
somewhere.
knew. I was like, look, I'm not gonna try to act like I know how to deal with Zimra and stuff. Old man, you know what you're doing, So he's a shareholder and a finance director at the studio.
Wow. That's fascinating. Which schools did you go to? Where did you start off?
So started off at St. Andrews creche in Kwekwe. Went to Kwekwe Primary. Went to Avondale Primary, and then went to Msengezi. And then from Msengezi, I went to a school called Denmark Training Services in town. And then I went to Harare Poly, which was a very pivotal experience in my life.
Why?
I met people who really chiseled.
What year was this?
This was in 2010.
2010.
Yeah, so I met people like Mkomako Sishirizinoma. He was one of our instructors there. I met Masimba Hwati. All these are my instructors. And I met some guys that are at the studio right now, the environment artists and stuff. And from there, I went to Ziva, which was a creative school. It was in Mount Pleasant, where I got my animation certification.
Is it still there?
No, it's not. Yeah. So by the time I went to Ziva, I was already doing animation as a freelancer.
So you got your animation certificate from Ziva.
from Ziva, yeah. But I was already
And that took you a year. Eh?
that took me a year. Yeah, I think I was supposed to do was it 3 years. So I just went straight into the final year, and then from there, I think the following year, I then opened the studio. Yeah. So that's like the whole lineup of the school, and I'm still learning. So I'm still at school. I think my last school was Disney, how to properly do production. Uh,
Beautiful career. And then you briefly went into formal employment. Because right now you're unemployed, isn't it? You went to work for Stewart Bank. 2016?
yeah. So it was actually that's actually quite interesting. And I'd say my relationship or like the studio's relationship with Stewart Bank is, I think I would call them our biggest investor. Not like they gave us money, but I'm going to get into it in just a little bit.
Sure.
So I get called on graduation night, right, by a studio that was doing work for Stewart Bank. They'd seen some of my work. That time the studio didn't exist. I get there. There was still in the city. I think there was the HQ where it was. And they basically wanted to find ways of revolutionizing how they do their advertising and stuff like that. And they really genuinely liked the work that we did. And from then, it has been an amazing journey in terms of like the visuals. So I wasn't actually hired or like working for Stewart Bank, but they were my one and only client, right? And I worked with them hand in hand, like daily. Like I wasn't pitching to anyone. I was like, you are gonna take it, whether you like it or not.
And they took it.
They took it.
Must have been good.
It was really good because it meant that when I came from out of college and straight into the field, I already had a big client who really was revolutionary. So we're talking of Batsy, the AI chatbot that came from Stewart Bank, which kickstarted all these other chatbots and stuff, and some of the amazing award-winning commercials that we did for them, our Christmas specials with them.
Who was the MD then at Stewart Bank?
I'm not too sure who it was. I think
Mambondiani.
yes, but I worked directly, and I still do work directly with Nyasha from marketing. The marketing team is amazing. Nyasha Gamu, all of them. Theo.
You can see the product. You can see the product. So you say 2016, you felt the entrepreneurial itch. Describe the itch to me.
Well, so 2015, I had the chance to go to work for Disney as an animator. Didn't pull through. I was scared. But then I felt like, hey, maybe this is something that I can do here, right? So we opened the studio out of necessity. Like we didn't feel like we wanted to open a studio, but it was like the influx of work. Now you got to have your tax clearance and stuff like that. And then you realize, wait, we're not just supposed to just create beautiful visuals. We need a system that generates these visuals, which was the conception of the studio. And I guess once the studio was opened, I became less of like an animator and more of a business person. Because now you really got to look into like, how does this expand and grow? What else can we do? How can we offer a service that is not a gimmick, but that is an actual product that people would actually want? How can we really best serve people?
You describe getting into the business for you as if it's a natural thing. It doesn't happen like that to everybody. You say you realize you have to do taxis, you just can't animate. I mean, that's growth there for you.
Yeah, that's
for
true.
some people, it doesn't happen. They remain animators and don't grow beyond that.
Yeah.
Where did this come from?
I guess like I was very much aware of the creatives or the artist's curse, which is they're bound to die broke, right? Leonardo da Vinci. His work was celebrated
when he was gone.
Way after he was gone. He doesn't even know that his work is priceless now. I didn't want to fall into that trap. So when we realized that we're going to open the studio, I'd worked for a company which I'm not going to name that had gone bankrupt because of certain practices that were not so good when I was interning, and when I realized they were opening a company, I was like, I don't want to do that. I'd seen how they'd failed, and I'd spoken to them, so I was like, I don't want to do that. So immediately, you knew that you need people who understand how to build a structure. You know, our studio is located at my family's property, but I still pay rent. You know, even though it's my dad's building, but I still pay rent there. So certain things needed to be placed in order. Also knowing that artists,
I think you need to say that loudly to this generation. You are working using your father's home. You're paying rent to your father.
yeah,
Let that sink out there.
yeah, and also understanding that if everyone around you is happy, right, which means your artists are happy, everyone that you're working with, like they're not working for me, we're working together, they're working with me. If they're happy, it means that they're well paid. That makes it easy for them to come to work. That makes it easy for them to be very creative. And you need to put a structure that can be able to meet their needs every time. And for you to meet their needs, you have to make sure the company's needs are met, which means that you're not in debt when it comes to Zimra and all those kind of things. You gotta, for you to also get paid properly, you need to have your paperwork, because that's the first thing that clients always ask.
But you've not been to business school. Where did you learn this from?
I guess like business school is created because they see the things that already exist. I think business school noticed the things that are naturally happening, and they created a structure that educates people. It's like we didn't create oxygen by discovering it. It was already there, right? Doctors don't create it. So I feel like when you naturally do certain things, you become a business person, and you learn these things by practice. Like, why should I do this? Why should you have a spreadsheet that lines all your line items? Business school can tell you that, but then like when you're practicing it, you realize that you actually need it.
You're taking me to the autodidact thing, where you and your buddies taught yourself. Talk to me about what you did, which places you went to in terms of platforms, in terms of technology and stuff. That experience, that playful learning experience. Talk to us about that.
So when I was at Poly, we a very small class. I think we're at about 13 heads in there. And it was easy to notice what someone was good at. So what we did is, outside of what the instructors are giving us, would give ourselves challenges outside. Like, you're good at graffiti, so we need to see something by next week. My friend Josh, who's an environment artist at the studio, and I were CG. When I say CG, it's computer graphics.
Computer graphics.
Yeah. We would give each other challenges. Create something that's amazing. So we ended up focusing more on that than actually delivering assignments. We almost failed because we were doing more of challenges that were more fun. We were gamers, which is something that is very, very important to our growth, because playing video games would challenge us, right? And you're also being exposed to the gamers or the game developers are artists. So you're being exposed to their art. So it was very, very important for us. Like, okay, so create from this game. We're playing FIFA. I want you to create something from the FIFA game. Okay, we're playing Need for Speed. Can you model a car? So teaching ourselves to do that really propelled us in a space where we were now doing things that we didn't know people actually needed.
And you stayed as a small group?
For the most part, we stayed as a small group.
Yeah.
Everyone in the studio were friends from outside before. We stayed as a small group.
Does that help or hinder the business?
It helps. It really does help, because you already know who you're dealing with, and there's already a basis of respect.
Yeah.
So if someone is already your friend, it's sometimes very difficult for you not to pay them. Though I would say it was quite a sad part of the business. I think like a year or so. There's a good friend. When things go sour, they really go sour. It didn't really end well, and we had to part ways, which I'm not going to get into that.
Sure,
Yeah,
no,
out of respect.
but we don't want to get into that. But I want to extract the lessons from that. What lessons did you extract from that? The pros and cons of working with somebody who's a good friend when things don't go well.
So the pros was that there was a basis of respect that was there, right? But the cons is that you become very trusting, right? When you become very trusting, sometimes you tend to overlook certain things deliberately because you just think, they got it covered and they're going to use the basis of respect to act accordingly. But some people are, maybe situations or something can push them over a certain edge. So what I learned was putting certain structures that even govern friends not to cross those boundaries, because when you do break that trust, it's gone. So when we came back, there were certain things when I came back from Hollywood, there's certain things that I had deliberately omitted to put in the studio that I ended up going like, guys, I know that we're friends, but let's just get this out of the way. Otherwise it might end it might end badly, which it did. It still is painful to today, but I learned that maybe if those structures were there from day one, we wouldn't have gone down that route.
But you've learned something out
Yes,
of it.
yes.
Pius, we're going to take another break here. When we come back, want us to go to what it means to be an award-winning movie director, what it means to have been to Hollywood and to have worked with Disney, and perhaps get some time to look into the portfolio of the clients that you're working with right now, and what is next for Alula.
Yes.
Please don't go away. Join us on the other side for this interesting conversation. See you on the other side.
The word Alula made a lot of people internationally think we're a European animation studio, or we're like in South Africa.
Well done.
And we're white.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people are like, oh, you guys are black?
Welcome back to our conversation with Pious Nyenyewa, award-winning movie director, dare I say again, professional animator, and studio lead of Alula Animation. In the township, they call you Ofaname Popeye. Which is a derogatory term.
Yeah.
Why Mapopeye? Why are you doing Mapopeye? Why animation? Why animation?
So, first of all, animation, it just breathes with happiness. I don't think there's ever a case where you think of cartoons and then you think sadness. But for me, I feel like they're mostly important because they capture and teach the youngsters. Like, for an example, I think I speak for most parents when I say when your child is annoying, you put the Disney Junior or Nickelodeon Junior or something like that, right? And they get to consume. But it's a case of like, what are they consuming at that age? I think like today's parents are very cognizant of like what their kids are watching and what they're learning. So for me, I feel like cartoons really capture the essence of life in a very comical way, but then at the same time is very educational, like in terms of what you think and how you speak and stuff like that. So. But then today you also have cartoons for older people. Like when you look at Pixar and Disney, they're doing these cartoons that are really pulling the heartstrings of both kids and adults. So in itself, I think it's a very educational platform that should be invested in. Like, Disney's a multi-billion-dollar corporation.
And the Simpsons are the most powerful family
yes
in the world.
and also predicting the future. I don't know how they do it, but it's
Tell me, AI, artificial intelligence, offers opportunities to an industry, but it is also eating your lunch.
Yeah. Yeah, we're still fortunate that this side of, because Zim is a bit slow to adopt certain things, so at least we're still fortunate in that. But it is true, it is quite helpful. And I'll speak of how we're using it at the studio.
Yeah.
So first it's admin, managing the admin side, which is emails, balancing our books and all that stuff. When it comes to creative, we try not to let it think for us in terms of conceptualizing a story, right? It has to be as original as possible. Take, for an example, Mukudze, the one that I spoke about, right? It was very original. The two characters,
Very original.
one is me. I actually voiced the character. The other one is a combination of my sister and my wife. AI can't create that because it doesn't have that experience. You know, so I'm drawing directly from the everyday life that we're having. The second thing is that what we use it for is the technical department, the ones that create the visuals. They use it for programming, creating tools that can help it. The sad part is that we can create a certain tool that can take someone else's job. So we challenge our artists to be as versatile as possible and as entrepreneurial, so that when this seems invalid or like it's been taken over by AI, you move over to another department. You know, so that's basically what we're doing.
Tell me, supposing there's a young man watching you right now and thinking, I would want to be like him. I would want to do what he's doing. What guidance would you give?
I'd say consume as many cartoons as possible. That's number one, right? It is the form of
What's your favorite cartoon?
Moana.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Moana is, I think, still
Yeah.
is number one. Story and
Beautiful
visuals.
story.
It's I remember when it came out, I went to watch it 5 times by myself.
So consume as many cartoons as possible.
Consume as many cartoons as possible. Observe life. But most of all, use YouTube. Because going to animation school is usually very expensive. I think that's one of the reasons why I never went. I did apply to Art Institute of Kansas City. I got in. I never told my parents. I kept the letter, and that's what helped
Because
me.
it's just going to be expensive.
Yeah, it was going to be expensive. You know, I think it was like $300K, and I knew they were not going to afford. But today's kids have got YouTube. My God, like YouTube, there's tons and tons of tutorials.
But today's kids are not using YouTube for what they should be using it for.
It is very, it is very sad. Like, we get a lot of people going like, can you teach me? I'm like,
It's there on
I'm
YouTube.
like, yeah, it's like, well, with production, we really don't have time to train anyone because we're not a school. We're a company. We're like, we'll give you a job, right? But use YouTube. We'll give you an internship. We have interns right now at the studio. So consume as many cartoons as possible, observe life, and use YouTube.
You say that, and I just want to go there and quote directly what you say, which is, we have a mission, and our mission is to revolutionize the animation landscape through mind-blowing VFX, which means visual effects,
Yes.
and animation. Are you succeeding?
Yeah, I think we're doing a great job. You know, I don't know if I should say it's bragging, but I feel like it's a fact. But like, I think Alula is a brand, at least in this region, you know, is really held at the premium esteem, you know, level.
Well done.
Yeah, so it's like people really think we're expensive,
Yeah.
right? Because maybe we are, but then they know that they're gonna get great visuals and great stories and a great product, and it is really changing the perception. The word Alula made a lot of people internationally think we're a European animation studio, or we're like in South Africa,
Well done.
and we're white.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people are like, oh, you guys are black? Like, yeah, we are. Like, it's not a race thing, but
And
yeah,
you're
we're
producing good stuff.
producing good stuff. So I think we are changing the,
Yeah.
especially with Kizazi Moto, it just proves that, we can do it.
Why is it important for us to tell our stories?
Identity. Look, this was the whole thing about, like, my story about the film Mukudze. I'm going to talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
It was really about identity because the character in the film has forgotten his identity. And I likened the downfall of the monument not being taken care of
Great Zimbabwe.
as the erasure of who we are, because the name Zimbabwe comes from. So stories, maintain people's identity. You don't want to get to like New York and then people think you're Nigerian. It's like, no offense to the Nigerian, but we want people to understand who you are and where you come from. Even though like if we break these colonial borders, we're all African. But stories really maintain who we are and why we do certain things so that they don't fade into obscurity.
Where do people watch Mukudze if they want to watch Mukudze?
I'm not too sure if it's still on Disney Junior,
Okay.
on the Disney Channel on
DSTV.
DSTV.
Yeah.
But I know that it's there on Disney Plus. VPN, I think Disney Plus is like $6 a month, and with the VPN, that's another $6. You can watch it. Yeah, you can watch it off of Disney Plus.
What doors has going to Hollywood and being associated with Disney opened for you? What has it done for you?
People trust you. People trust you a lot. Like, we have a couple of TV shows that we're working on right now, kids shows that we're working on right now. Before, like, what I was saying, that people will look at Zim and they think, oh, inflation. We're known for that. This and that and that. But so that we can't be trusted with certain things. But when you produce something at that level and you're associated with such brands, people tend to trust you. And I guess personally, and also I speak for the studio, we've become more confident. So there's certain people that you are afraid of reaching out to. Now, just like, hey, Peter Ramsey, which Peter Ramsey is an amazing, humble person. You can reach out to certain people, and then you figure out a lot of people are willing to work with you. So in terms of like producing new shows that might or might not be showing at ZBC very soon, or like even on a global scale, it just opens multiple doors.
How do you deal with the stigma, the derogatory Mapopaya and Amari, doing Mapopaya doesn't have money? What's your response to that? To give confidence to young people out there thinking that there's a career here, but your father says Mapopaya Itemari.
Yeah, so I guess now I'm Googleable. So if ever your dad's like Mapopaya and Amari, just Google me. I guess like just the quality of life that you get to live can prove to. Like, I've had that with my uncles. My uncles who was like, the introvert, Mapopaya, right? But then like when the money starts flowing in from like the work and like the perceptions change, we're going to South Africa. Conversations change. But what I would say is that I haven't had that stigma. I think in the early days I had it, but I think now it's changing because of like how animation took over. People are calling it less Mapopai now and using the term animation a lot. So I'd say if somebody says to you Mapopai, just say they're called animation and Google me.
Talk to me about there's going to be young people watching you now, and you didn't go to university. You taught yourself this stuff. But they're saying there are no opportunities. There are no jobs. You've done a lot by teaching yourself, by being out there, by knocking at doors. What do you say to the young people that are sitting at home, using the internet to watch useless things? What do you say to them?
I'll say the internet is a great tool. It could either make you or break you, right? It just depends on what you're looking to consume from it. For me, like, I didn't go to animation school, like this big, like, prestigious animation schools, like, which if you can go. It'll definitely expedite your process to getting there. But what I'd say is use the internet wisely. YouTube is full of so many things, cat videos, fail videos, but it's also full of like the Andrew Kramers who are teaching people after.
And this
show, exactly. It's full of testimonials of people who've done it. So for me, like, I knew I couldn't afford to go to animation school, so I went to the closest place that I could, which was Arado Poly, and I studied art and graphic design, right, which has helped shape how I see color, how I see compositing and stuff like that, and which are tools that I use in animation a lot. So my advice is, if you can't go to animation school, use YouTube. Also study formally the closest thing you can, which is art, because it works a lot, right? But use YouTube to also supplement animation. And maybe then we can give you an internship.
At Alula.
It's Alula, yeah.
Wow, there you go, guys. There you go. There's an opportunity right there. Where you are right now with Alula, what's the one thing that will just change the trajectory of Alula in being in Zimbabwe and being global? What is it that you need to make your next big move?
I think
Or you're okay, we should just leave you?
I think a trajectory is moving quite fine. I think one of the things that I always say is that there's a lot of potential to tell films for films in Zimbabwe, which is something that we've been pushing. Like yesterday, I had an interesting meeting with the team from ZBC, right? And I was like, look, we're pitching all these shows to like all these amazing external studios, and they're taking our concepts, but then nothing is happening here. So it's a case of animation being taken serious here. And because a lot of people, like I was speaking to him, right, behind this camera, and he says it consumes a lot of animation. But how many from Zimbabwe have you watched? You know what I mean? So I feel like there needs to be the push to real budgets. Like if I have a film, right, where should I pitch? Like if this studio is going to offer 60 million to produce that.
Did you say 60 million?
Yes.
Dollars?
Yes.
Not zigs?
Yeah, 60 million and strip out anything Zimbabwean. Do you get it?
Yeah.
Like, where am I going to lean?
Yeah.
But here's like you can keep the Zimbabwean. Maybe it might not be 60 million, but we can still produce something that is very good. We did produce a short piece last year that came out, I think it was during Defense Forces.
Okay.
And it was a story about a child that was going through the effects of war back in the 1960s. And it was such an amazing piece. You know, it's like if we can expand that story and really show people what it was like being a youth during the struggle, you know, what it was life like, because people tend to forget.
Absolutely.
So there's so many things that we can do with film.
So many stories we can
Yeah.
tell. Yeah. I mean, you're just starting out. You're young. Have you failed yet on anything?
I think like my biggest failure was last year. It was one of the most harrowing experiences.
Talk to us about that.
Oh, so remember I spoke about the whole student
Friend thing.
No, that one, like, no,
Okay.
like, I guess, yeah, that one I'm over it.
Okay.
But this one was more directly with something that I must have had control with. We'd pitched this amazing project. I'd seen it at Disney. I came here, pitched it. In concept, it was working fine. We didn't have enough time to develop it. And the day that we were supposed to present it, it didn't go as planned. That wasn't like the first time that I failed, up to a point that the client was consoling me and I'd failed them.
Were you crying?
I wasn't, but I was just mad at everyone. I was just mad. I just felt like everyone didn't do what they were supposed to do.
Did you do what you're supposed to do?
I did the best that I could,
Yeah.
but I think where I failed was to really wrangle and get people in place. Because you always assume that people are going to do what they're supposed to do.
Never assume anything.
Exactly. So like in that moment, right, it was so embarrassing because it was such a big moment in terms of technology.
What did you learn? What did you learn from that?
That failure is possible. You're flying too close to the sun.
Yeah.
I was really high on the euphoria from working with Disney. I felt like I wasn't going to fail. So I was overconfident. The product didn't fail, but it was how we presented it.
Yeah.
We were not organized enough as a team. So it wasn't just per se like the product didn't work out,
Yeah,
but our
yeah.
team wasn't cohesive enough to deliver such an amazing product that it kind of like was a failed start. It's like, so now you're trying to push something that didn't go well the first time.
What's your next big thing? What's Alula's next big thing?
So we have a couple shows that are in development. We have a show that we're doing with a UK company. And then we have a show that, like I said, like yesterday was chatting with the ZBC. So we have a show that we're going to debut there maybe in the next couple of months or a year or so. So that's the next big thing. And other stuff that are...
You can't talk about.
I can't talk about it. Yeah.
Talk to me about your spread of portfolio clients, who you can name. Stewart Bank, obviously.
Yeah, we've worked with Stewart Bank, ZB, Econet. We're working with Econet, UNESCO. We've worked with the French Embassy. We've worked with Zimplats. We've worked with Dairy Board. I'm just trying to think who we didn't work with.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was quite fascinating because you didn't realize that a lot of people want the animation. You just didn't know who would do it. So we have quite a diverse. We've worked with Heart and Soul Radio.
Yes, you have.
We've done some beautiful visuals, and we're through Unique. So we have quite a diverse portfolio.
Any regrets at all?
I try not to regret anything, actually. No, I think I think the one regret is I would just say that not putting certain things in place that was supposed to safeguard a friendship during work. You know what I mean? I think that's the only regret that I had. Like, had I seen that, I would have put certain measures
Yeah.
that would have protected certain relationships that I had through work. But outside of that, I think I'm content. Even the big disaster that we're talking.
We learn from those.
Yeah, I
don't we?
learned
Yeah.
from it, and we end up having a second go at it again with Stuart Bank early this year, and it was amazing.
Beautiful.
So yeah.
Wow, like I said, if I was younger, if I could go and be young, you're living my life. That's what I would like to do. Do you read books?
I do.
You do?
Yes.
Shall we go to books?
Yeah,
Okay.
let's go.
Our viewers love books out there. What three books would you recommend?
First of all,
And any animation books would be great.
okay. So first of all, the Bible.
Oh, right.
So it's the Torah is my favorite books of the Bible, the whole Bible. I feel like it's cliche, but it is true. I am a reverend son after all. The second book is called 12 Rules for Life by Jordan B. Peterson. I think
I've read that one.
Yeah.
What a book.
yeah, what a
What a
book.
book.
Yeah, I've recommended it to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think he has another one called another. I haven't read that one yet, but 12 Rules for Life is amazing.
Beautiful.
And then the animation one is called Art in the Campfire by Marco Bucci. I just love how he was able to break down the difference between talent and skill. Like, not all talented people make it, but there are very skilled people who are making it. You know, so and he I think he was an animator at Disney. I'm not too sure where he was, but he is working in the art space. And every time an intern is at the studio, I'm like, "Have you read this book yet? Read it."
Pious, thank you so much.
Thank
What
you
a
very,
great
very
pleasure
much.
talking to you. We wish you many, many more of those Hollywood awards.
Appreciate it. I'm bringing them home.
Oh, yeah, bring them home. Bring lots of them home. And I have no doubt your attitude, your passion, you are very grounded. The future can only be bright. We wish you all the very
Yes,
best.
it's here in Zim.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Allow me now to tend to our viewers who are all over the world to say thank you so much for your support. Remember, we are out every Monday, 7 a.m. Central African Time on YouTube. To ensure that you don't miss out on any of these quality conversations, I invite you please to press on the subscribe button, like and share as much as possible. When and if you subscribe, you'll get a notification every time we have one of these quality conversations so that you don't miss out. So please do subscribe. We've gone a step further and created curated all our content on our website for your viewing and watching pleasure. So go below this video and click on the podcast button and listen whilst you're washing plates, cleaning the car, and all that kind of stuff. We view all your comments under this video and your suggestions. Thank you for your support. Until next time, cheers to you all.